Hey everyone, and welcome to RUBIN'S Mind Lab, where we break down the latest research into what it really means. Ever wondered if the data in online psychology studies is actually trustworthy? Well, a new paper suggests we might have a big problem on our hands, and it points to a surprising solution. Imagine you are reading a fascinating psychology study. It seems solid, the findings are interesting, and you start thinking about how they apply to the real world. But what if the very foundation of that study, the data itself, is a bit shaky? That is the big question this research dives into. Online surveys are everywhere, used by scientists in all sorts of fields to understand us better. But how do we know for sure who is actually taking these surveys? This paper argues that we're facing a crisis of unverifiable data because it is getting harder and harder to be sure the people answering our questions are who they say they are. Think about it, online platforms like Prolific Academic are often seen as the gold standard for getting good data, much better than older options like Amazon Mechanical Turk. But this research found something worrying. They looked at data collected on Prolific and discovered some serious red flags. So, what did they do? The researchers collected data from 5 different studies on Prolific, all with people from the United States. What they noticed first was something odd in the location data. A specific, strange geolocation point popped up a lot, way more than it should have. It was a spot outside of Wichita, Kansas that is basically farmland. This might sound like a small thing, but when they dug deeper, they found that the number of participants linked to this weird spot jumped from 4% to a whopping 28% in just a few months. This wasn't just in one study either. Other researchers noticed the same pattern. It was like a growing problem. Now, scientists have tried and true methods to check for bad data. Things like CAPTCHA tests to make sure you are not a robot, checking for duplicate survey entries, and attention checks where you have to follow specific instructions. They used all these standard tricks, and guess what? They didn't catch any of the suspicious data. The people giving those strange location answers passed all the usual tests. This is a major problem because it means the normal ways we try to ensure good data just aren't working anymore for this kind of issue. This is where IP analysis comes in. IP addresses are like digital street addresses for computers. By looking at this information, researchers can get clues about where someone is really connecting from, if they're using a VPN to hide their location, or even if the connection looks like it is coming from a data center, which can be a sign of bots or survey farms. They developed a tool, an R package called IP2Location, IO, to analyze this IP data. They looked at 5 key things. First, were the estimated locations from the survey platform wildly different from what the IP address suggested, like thousands of kilometers apart? Second, was the IP address coming from a country other than the US, which was supposed to be the target population? Third, was the person using a proxy or VPN to hide their real location? Fourth, was the IP address associated with a data center, which can be a sign of automated systems? And fifth, was the IP address linked to a domain name that is known for providing proxy services? And the results were pretty stark. They found that data points associated with that suspicious geolocation were much more likely to show these red flags. For example, nearly all of them had wildly different location estimates. But it wasn't just that one weird location. The study showed that these IP indicators of potential fraud were becoming much more common over time on Prolific. The prevalence of these issues increased significantly between September 2024 and January 2025, with some indicators jumping by a factor of 2 to 7. This is the kicker. These issues went undetected by the standard best practices. This means that a huge chunk of data, up to 40% in some cases, might have been from people who weren't legitimate participants. This could totally mess up research findings without researchers even knowing. So, what can researchers do? The paper suggests 3 approaches for excluding data based on IP analysis, ranging from conservative to more liberal. The most comprehensive approach could lead to excluding up to 40% of data. That is a massive loss and a huge cost in terms of research power and funding. This led them to investigate if this was a Prolific-only problem or if it affected other platforms too. They compared data from Prolific to data from Cloud Research Connect and Qualtrics Edge panels. What they found was that Prolific at that time had significantly lower data integrity compared to the other 2. This means the problem of suspicious data was more concentrated on Prolific during that period. However, they also found that using filters on Prolific, like only accepting participants who registered before a certain date and had a high approval rating, could really help. This improved Prolific's data integrity to a level comparable to other platforms. But filtering has its limits. It restricts the pool of participants and isn't a long-term solution. So, they developed a real-time IP filter for Qualtrics studies. This filter checks IP addresses as people try to enter the survey and blocks suspicious ones on the spot. They tested this in a new study. Out of 328 people who started, 16% showed some signs of potential fraud. But the real-time filter automatically blocked 91% of those suspicious participants. This is amazing. It means they only had to manually exclude a tiny fraction of the data, practically preserving almost the entire sample. This real-time approach is a game changer. Instead of losing up to 40% of data after the fact, they only lost a tiny, almost negligible amount. It significantly reduces the cost of ensuring data integrity, saving time, money, and statistical power. So, what is the big takeaway here? The core issue is the unverifiable data crisis. The standard methods for checking data quality are no longer enough. We can't just trust that online platforms are handling the fraud problem for us. We as researchers need to be more proactive. IP Analysis offers a powerful way to audit past data and to prevent fraud in future studies. The tools they've developed, IP2 location, IO for retrospective analysis, and a real-time filter for prospective studies, are crucial steps forward. However, IP data has limitations. IP addresses can change, and a single IP might not represent just one person. Also, IP information is perishable, meaning it is most accurate when analyzed quickly after data collection. A big challenge is that IP addresses are considered identifiable information, which means researchers can't usually share them publicly to ensure transparency and reproducibility, even though it is crucial for verifying data exclusions. This creates a tension between protecting privacy and ensuring scientific integrity. This research isn't saying prolific is bad or that you should never use online surveys. Instead, it is a wake-up call data. Integrity is a constant battle, a cat-and-mouse game with fraudsters. No platform is immune forever. The real solution is for researchers to adopt an anti-fraud mindset, to actively look for new irregularities rather than just relying on old red flags. We need to blend our survey design skills with a basic understanding of cybersecurity. So, what is my take on this research? I think it is incredibly important work. The paper highlights a silent crisis that could be undermining a lot of the research we rely on. The development of practical tools like the IP2 location, IO package, and the real-time IP filter is a huge step. The honesty about the limitations, like the perishability of IP data and the challenges with public sharing, is also vital. The biggest strength here is showing that even well-regarded platforms aren't immune and that established methods can miss serious issues. The research provides concrete, actionable steps for researchers to take. The biggest limitation, as the authors point out, is the difficulty in making IP. Base data exclusions fully reproducible due to privacy regulations, which is a significant hurdle for open science. In the real world, this means we need to be more critical consumers of online survey research. If you are a researcher, you absolutely need to think about these IP analysis tools. For the rest of us, it means acknowledging that while online research is a powerful tool, it comes with inherent risks that we need to be aware of. Future research could focus on improving the accuracy and robustness of IP databases, developing new methods that are less dependent on potentially perishable IP data, and finding ethical ways to share IP. Related information to maintain transparency without compromising privacy. This is a fascinating glimpse into the challenges of modern data collection and a call to action for greater diligence in scientific research. If you found this breakdown helpful, please give this video a thumbs up. Leave a comment with your thoughts on online data integrity. And don't forget to subscribe to RUBIN'S Mind Lab for more science explained simply. We'll see you in the next one.